Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Tet Vav 15 of Masechet Sanhedrin. We are at the two dots at the on the second to last line of Yudalit Amabet. Let me share my screen and we'll really get started. Um, of course, we have been going through the opening Mishnah of the of Masechet Sanhedrin, dealt with a numerous categories of cases and how many judges are required in each of them, and so now the Gemara has been going through on a relatively rapid fire basis each of those cases, and we continue now with the Erech case. And in the Mishnah, so the Gemara again of second to last line of Yudal and Amabet, Gemara is going to address valuation promises. So the Mishnah reference, although we only quote the word ha'arachin here, it says ha'arachin ha'mitaltalin. So now the question that the Gemara is going to ask, as we pick up with the two dots, second to last word on the to last line of Yudal and Mabet, my arachin ha'mitaltalin. What are these arachin ha'mitaltalin that the Mishnah referenced? So, meaning, and take a look in Rashi, Erech lo shayach gabi kalim. When we talk about an Erech vow, this is dealt with in the last chapter of Sefer Vayikra. And in Parshas Bechukotai, it talks about making vows based on a person's age and gender. So I don't understand the whole concept of Erechin doesn't apply to Metaltalin. So what in the world are we talking about? So again, continuing on in that Rashi, last Rashi on Yudal and Mabet, Lo Shayak Gabi Kalim Ela Ba'adam. It only applies to humanity. The no saying Lafi Shanav, and you pay based on the amount of years that the person is. Kamosha Katub Parsha, as that Parsha specifically details. So what are we talking about? So three answers is what the Gemara is going to give. First answer, Amarav Gidol, Amarav Ba'omer Erech Kli Alai. If you use the language of the value of this utensil is on me, so then that's what you're going, then in that situation, you're going to have to fulfill the promise and you're going to have to pay the valuation of that vessel to the Beis Hamikdash. And how do I know that? Because the Amar of Gidol, Amar Rav, as we turn to Tedvav Amad Aleph, HaOmer Erech Kli Alai, if somebody says the value of this vessel is on me, no saying Damav, you have to give that money worth of that vessel, even though the word Erech, which has a sense of valuation, doesn't literally mean the valuation of a vessel. We're going to interpret it to mean that you indicate that you want that you want to give that amount of money. My time. Well, why do we do that? Meaning, why is it that notwithstanding the fact that the term erech does not apply to humanity, we're going to reinterpret it? Adam Yodeya she'ein erech lichli. People know that erech doesn't apply to a vessel, and so as a result, the Gamar, so he's concluded va'amar l'shum damim, that he's using it as an estimated value, and that's what he's trying to do. Mishum haki no saying damav, and so as a result, because that's clearly what he must have in mind, we're going to say that that's what he must give. So hi arach and hametaltalin, but 1 second. The Mishnah says arachin hametaltalin, but which sounds like valuations that are movable, erech valuations that are movable. But this is really arachin shel metaltalin, the value of the movable objects. Mibaile, shouldn't the Mishnah have said it that way? So the Gemara answers, yeah, Tanei Arachin Shel Metaltalin. All right, so you can learn the Mishnah and teach the Mishnah as if it said valuations of movable objects. So that was answer number one to what we mean by this concept of Erech and Hamatazlim. Because again, as Rashi pointed out on the bottom of Yudal and Mabed, Erechin is only applies to humanity, to trying to donate the value of a person. And we do it, and if you use the term Erech, well, then we assume that you mean a generic person and not, and then it just depends on the person, on the gender age of the person that you've chosen. Rav Chisda Amar Avimi, and again, that's all based on the last parak of Sefer Vayikra in Parshas Bechukotai. So Rav Chisda Amar Avimi. So now, second answer to what we mean by Erechin Hametaltalin. So b'maspis metaltalin la'arachin. Well, we're dealing with a situation where you've made an erech vow with respect to a value of a person, but now when it comes to paying off that vow, so you actually are paying it based on using movable objects. So now that you're using those movable objects, so therefore that's what we're dealing with. So hi arachin hamataltalin. But again, the language of our Mishnah was arachin hamataltalin shel arachin mibaile. These are movable objects that are used to pay off an erachin vow. That's how it should read. So tanim mentaltalin shel arachin. So yes, in fact, you're right. So in each of the first two answers, the words don't fit perfectly. Again, answer number one, we're dealing with somebody who says, I want to give the erech of a movable object, and therefore that's what we're talking about. And answer number two is they did an erech vow with respect to a person as they're supposed to, but or as they're want to do, but they are, when it comes to paying off the vow, they are trying to give metaltalin, and so that's the situation. But again, neither of those fit perfectly with the language. So we have answer number three, which fits the language, but we'll see has another problem. Rabbi Abahu Amar, and is presumably why the first two chose not to give it. But Omer Erki Alai. So a person says that they're going to give their valuation, and Ba Kohen Ligbos Mimenu Mitaltalin Bishlosha Karkos Basara. So now the Kohen is coming to collect, meaning somebody made, let's say me, I made the Erech vow, but I never paid off. And so everybody knows that I made the erech vow. So the Kohen now comes to collect the payment. And so as a result, if he comes to collect from metaltalin, so then he needs only three appraisers. But if he comes to collect from karka, he needs 10 appraisers. So Amrle Rav Acha Medifti Ravina. Look, I understand, and Rashi explains, according to the first two answers, it makes total sense why you would need three judges. Because you are taking something that was part of the Beis Hamikdash's property, either because you effectively said erech of this utensil, or you were giving the utensil as sort of a payment to the Beis Hamikdash, and now we're going to allow the sale of that item to redeem the value of your contribution. So as a result, that's why we need three judges to come and determine the amount. But but in the case where hektish is coming to take it away from the person and do the collection itself, why should you necessarily need three? So Amarle, Ravina explains, Svaraho, Mali Ayule, Mali Apuke, that actually it makes sense to use three, because why should we differentiate between when the object is going into hektish and when the object is going out of hektish? Meaning, even though one could argue that when the object is going into hektish, so if there's a misvaluation, it doesn't really matter. Maybe the person owes more, but there's no question about the hektish nature of the item. But when it goes out of the hektish category, well, then we have to be worried that maybe you could end up in a situation of me'ila if you haven't paid sufficiently. So maybe that's why we would differentiate. But then the answer that Ravina offers is no, let's not differentiate. Let's just use the same three in all cases. So apuke my taima. So why in the world would you need three for and now we're going to explain why we should do the both. Because why do you need three when it goes out? Because Dilma Tai, maybe they'll make a mistake. Ayule Nami, Dilma Tai, we're worried that one appraiser is going to make a mistake, and we don't want mistakes. Okay, so now the Gemara continues with the quote of the next aspect of our Mishnah, where Rabbi Yehuda is the one who is speaking. And Rabbi Yehuda says that one of the three Kohanim need to be, so that was the three answers. So one of the three, now we come on to the next piece, and the one of the three Kohanim, one of the three appraisers needs to be a Kohen according to Rabbi Yehuda. So Amalei Rav Papala Baye Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda. I understand why the appraisers need to be a Kohen, Hainu Dixiv Kohen, because if you take a look at that last perek in Sefer Vayikra in Parshas Bechukotai, it says the word Kohen with respect to the person who's doing the valuation and going over the materials. El Rabbanan Kohen Lamalahu. Why do they need the word Kohen? So Kasha, you're right. In fact, it is difficult to them how they deal with the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be a Kohen. Then the Mishnah continued, Hakar Kaos Tisha Kohen, and now we're touching on the question that Ken asked on the very first day of our learning of Sanhedrin. I don't understand why in the world we can use 10 judges. Don't we have a concept that we need 11? Well, the answer is Minahani Mili. How do I know that we need 9 in a Kohen? Amar Shmuel, Asara Kohen in Ksuvim Parsha. If you count the references to Kohen in that last perek of Sefer Vayikra, so you'll see that there are 10. Chad Lagufe, one tells you that you need a Kohen, and Hana Chavi Miyut Achar Miyut, and the rest of them are an exclusion following an exclusion, meaning if you have the reference to Kohen twice, so why do you need to limit the situation to just the Kohen? It must be that the second reference to Kohen is going to be expansive. Ve'ein miyut achar miyut elo rabos, and we have a general concept. One of the ways that we learn from things in the Torah is that when you have a one exclusive limitation term and then the same limitation term, so then the second time it's not meant to be exclusionary but rather to be inclusionary. Dafilu tet Yisrael be'echad Kohen. So that teaches us that even 9 Yisraelim and 1 Kohen can work together to do the estimation. So Maskif lo Rav Huna lo Breda Rav Nasan. One second, Rav Huna says, Ema chamisha kohanim v'chamisha Yisraelim. Maybe we should have 5 and 5, as Rashi explains. If we take a look in Rashi, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, about 18, 19 lines down in the narrow lines on Tesvav Amud Aleph, ve'ema chamisha kohanim v'chamisha Yisrael, be'inan, that we would need 5 and 5. Dekama legufe, that the first time it references Kohen, it's for itself, usheni lo, and then the second time, havi miyud achamiyud. And then the second one is an exclusion as for an exclusion. So therefore, we're going to make it inclusive. Ushlishi hadar itzrech legufe. And now the third time, we again can say that we need it. And so as a result, the third time that we mentioned Kohen, it's to be exclusive in telling us that you need a Kohen. Dini havi Kohen. The Kevan de Iturabi le miyut, that achar miyut, that once we said that the miyut achar miyut comes to include dafilu Yisrael, that even in Yisrael, ki hadar kasav Kohen, now when it writes Kohen again, dafka kasvei, it must be that it's writing it specifically. Delav miyut achar miyut hu. That one isn't a miyut achar miyut. Daha sheni lav miyut hu, because the second reference to a Kohen is no longer a miyut, rather ela riboy. It actually constitutes a riboy. V'chein kulam chad dafka b'chad havi miyut achar miyut. You would go back and forth between those two concepts. So why don't you need 5 and 5? And the Gemara says, you know what, Kasha, you're right. It's difficult. It's interesting that we do that. Now, there are some relatively potential answers that we could do here. That, in particular, the bottom line is that maybe we could just say that actually that's the whole concept, that when we say miyut achar miyut, that even though that second miyut comes to be larabot, we don't turn it into a no longer miyut. We still consider it a miyut, even though we're going to use the concept of miyut achar miyut. Again, it's not a perfect answer. That's why it's a kasha, but maybe that's the bottom line is that this was the tradition that they had, and so as a result, we say that we need 9. Only 9 is 9 can be anything, and only one has to be a Kohen, according to the viewpoint that you need a Kohen. Now, again, we now to in addressing Ken's question of I don't understand. What about the fact that we have 10 uh, judges here? How come we don't need an even number? So, this question is asked twice. The note here notes the location in Megillah, Daf Kaf Gimel Amud Bet. It's
Does he say
also
we don't
asked
have an
by
even number?
what?
Why does he say we don't need an even number? This is the even number. We don't need an
I
odd
understand,
number.
but
We
remember
don't
your
need an odd
question.
number. Or say, should say we don't need an odd number.
Yes, if I said we don't need an even number, meaning I meant why don't we need an odd number? That's what I thought I was saying. But yes, why don't we need an odd number? That's exactly what Tosos asks again on in Megillah Daf Kaf Gimel Amabet, and he asks it also in Erech and Daf Yud Tet Amabet. There, he actually suggests that maybe we do add an 11th, and this is just, of course, we will apply the concept of we don't have a Beit Din Shakul, that we don't have an even number of judges on a Beit Din. But the Ritva in Megillah Daf Kav Gimel Bet notes that this is really Xeris Akasov, and that it when and justifies it based on the concept that evaluation is fundamentally a different method of work for a based in from other forms of judgment. And so as a result, maybe it because first of all, it would be difficult. You can others say that it's difficult for everybody to come to a unanimous opinion anyway, or a majority opinion, because every valuation, there's so many different gradations of valuation, because every penny is a different valuation. So but the bottom line is that the Ritva there notes that based on the Xeris Akasov, which was the concept that I had introduced and suggested back when we were on Daf Beis and Gimel, that that's exactly what he says. So I was mechav into the Ritva, and he says that evaluation again is a different animal, and that's why we can justify it in this situation. But if in fact in other situations when the Torah refers to a plural number, so then we'll say plural, but it means two, but we always have to have odd, so therefore it's three. But 10 is such a unique number that we're going to say you don't need to have an even number. Okay, so that
The
is
result, if they haven't the baked in the five
you
people,
don't need an odd number, excuse me.
if five people hold one way and five the other way, that's what would be the final decision then?
So I'm going to ask that we wait to Maseches Erechim because I don't know the answer to that question. I actually wonder whether there's, that there, that would be a very unique situation where you end up with five, with essentially 10 judges coming up with only two different answers. Given that presumably everybody is coming up with their answer independently, you would expect that they would come up with a multitude of answers. And I think we saw that actually, in general, they do either it's the middle number or something along those ways. So if in fact in that situation it may be that they would just average the two numbers to come up with a number, but I'm not 100% sure how they would handle that situation. But again, that would be, they would potentially have the same issue if we had three judges, an odd number of judges, and one says, 10, one says 11, and one says 12. So you still don't have, you have an even number of judges, the same number of judges saying below 11 and the same number of judges saying above 11. So you can end up with a similar situation even if you don't have an even number of judges. So the point is that as a result, yes, we need to resolve that situation, but that is not different from a situation that we could have even with an odd number of judges. Okay, but Adam kiyotza behen, and we said that not only when you estimate the value of land, but if you estimate the value of a person, that would be a situation as well. But Adam mikadosh, I don't understand. How can you consecrate a person? A person can't become hektish Meaning it would make sense in the concept. Well, yeah, no, a person can't become hektish. So Amar Rabbi Abahu Ba'omer Damayalai, that Rabbi Abahu explains that we're dealing with a situation where a person says, "I'm going to take upon myself to give my monetary value." So, and that's based on the following brisa, Titania Haomer Damayalai. If I say that I'm taking upon myself my valuation, Shaminoto, you estimate the valuation. Ke'eved hanimkar bashuk, like a slave that would be sold in the marketplace. How much would this person be valued at as a slave? Ve'eved iskish lekarkaos, and a slave is comparable to land, and so just as land requires 10, so too will require 10 for a slave, and because that's the basis for determining how the valuation works when you say that I'm going to pay my own value to the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so boy, Rabbi Avin. Now, Rabbi Avin says, one second, let's talk about another kind of appraisal and whether or not it also requires 10 appraisers. So what about Sar by Rabbi Avin, Sar Ha'omed Ligzos? If you have hair that's ready to be clipped off, and the person said that they are donating, that they want to donate the value of that hair, but comma, is how many judges do you need to appraise it? Kigazuz dame bishlosha. Do we say that it's as if it was already clipped, and hair that's already clipped only requires three? Oba mechuber dame uvasara, or is it like it's attached to the body, and therefore it's a body, and therefore it requires 10? So Tashma, actually come and listen, and you'll hear that this is actually a machlokus we see in another brisa. Hamayk makdish as avdo. Ein moalinbo. If you sanctify your and consecrate to the Beis Hamikdash your slave, you do not commit meila by using it, because the slave is like karka, and I'm sorry, the because the slave is not um, uh, uh, yeah, the slave is like karka. There's no meila by karka, and so there's no meila by a slave. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Moalin Bisaro, you can do meila if you use the slave's hair, even though it's still attached to him. So, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, it's clear he holds that the hair is as if it's already cut, whereas the Tanakama says no, it's not. V'kaimalan debisaro home and ligzos pligi, and we've explained that this machlokes in this is between those who say that it's that where the hair is already ready to be cut. So shma mina. So we see that we have this machlokes tanaim over the how to answer Rav Avin's question. So Nema Hani Tanai Kani tonight. Should we say that the Tanaim in Rabbi Avin's in the answer that we gave to Rabbi Avin's question are just like the following? Ditnan Rabbi Meir Omer Yesh Dvarm Shehain Kakarka Ve'ein Kakarka. There's things that are like land but are not treated like land. Ve'ein Chacham Chamim Modim Lo, and the Chachamim do not agree. Ketzad. Give me an example. Eser gefanim to unos masarti lecha. If I claim that I gave to Stan 10 vines of grapes with fruit on them to watch, Vahala Omer Einan Elachamesh, and the other one says, no, you only gave me 5 vines to watch. Rebbe Meir Mechayev, Rebbe Meir says he is liable. That based on the concept of Moda B'miktsas, if we take a look in Rashi, 1, 2, 3. We're going to count from the bottom of the narrow lines in Rashi. 6, 9, 10, about the 20, 21, 22 lines up. Rabbi Meir Mechayev, Lishva al Hashar. That Rabbi Meir would say that the person that stand in that situation who's denying 5 of the fruit of the grapevines of having been given those grapevines, he needs to swear with respect to them. Shahoda Mixus, because he is admitted having accepted to watch 5 Mixus Hatana, part of the claim. Afal Gafta Einish Bon Alakarkos. And he has to make this oath, even though in general we don't make oaths with respect to land. As we learned in as we will learn in Masechah Shavuos Daf Mem Bet Amud Aleph, Hacha here, Kavan de Ein Tzrichen Lekarka, since they de mostly batser, because they are no longer requiring the land, because they're ready to be cut. Hain kedemuke Rabbi Yossi, as we're going to see, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina is about to say, leplugte kebitzurot damyan v'nishban. It's as if they're already picked, and therefore you need to swear. Right? V'chachamim omrim, whereas the chachamim say, no, kol mechuber lakarka harehu kakarka. No, it's as if it's still just land. V'amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina ba'anavim ha'omdos libatzeras. And Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, as we just saw in Rashi, tells us that we're dealing with grapes that are ready to be picked. Mar Savar, Rabbi Meir says, Kivid Suros Damyan. It's as if they are already picked, and therefore they're considered movable objects. And so the person who denies half has to swear. Umar Savar Lav Kivid Suros Damyan. And the rabbis say no, the Chachamim say no, you don't have to swear because they're still attached to the ground, and so they're treated like part of the ground. So can't we align Rabbi Meir with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that you do me'ila with respect to a slave's hair, and the Chachamim with the Tanakama, who says that there is no me'ila by a slave's hair, even if that hair is ready to be cut, because it's still attached to the slave. Lo, afilu tamen Rabbi Meir. No, you could even say that Rabbi Meir would agree with the Tanakama. So, because Adkan lo kama Rabbi Meir hasam, why does Rabbi Meir say with respect to grapes that we're going to treat it as if they're cut off? Because kol kama deshavka lahu michash kakashe. Because if you leave the grapes on the vine, they will ruin themselves. Because they will get overripe and not be appropriate. Aval saro, but when it comes to a person's hair and the value that the hair has, Kol kama deshavka lahu ashbuchi mishpach. But if you leave it on the head, it grows longer and becomes even more valuable. So as a result, maybe he would treat a slave's hair as like the Tanakama and say that there is no me'ila because keeping it attached is what the person might actually want. So as a result, we've concluded that concept, and so now we turn to the next line in our Mishnah. Dine nefashot.
Isn't there a machloket in Shas whether slave is considered karka or metaltanin? Don't we go back to that? We discussed that over and over,
No,
right?
well, I think it's pretty clear that we all could treat a slave like karka. Now there are certain aspects where we also recognize that they're not fully like karka. So you're
Right.
right to say that, but there is a specific zera with respect to oaths that is made between slaves and karka, or maybe it's even it's I think it's Xereshov. It could be just based on the adjacency of psukim that we say that. But the point is that you're right that it's not a 100% correlation, but we do treat them as the same with respect to oaths, meaning that we don't allow. I don't know what happened here. Why is it not sharing my screen? Hold on. There we go. It does. Hopefully, you can still see my screen. It does. We do treat slaves and land the same with respect to oaths. So you're right, but that it's not with respect to 100% of everything. Okay, so the Mishnah then said that when it comes to Dine Nefashos, we need 23 judges. So we pick up, we're continuing now about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines up in the narrow lines on Ted Vav Amud Aleph. So when it comes to Dine Nefashos, capital cases, Kas Pasak Vatani. So in second, we have a general rule. Now, then it talked about an animal sodomizing a person or being sodomized by a person, and it said that is also judged by a 23. So Loshna roveya zachar, v'loshna roveya nekeva. It didn't make a difference whether the animal sodomized a man or a woman. So Bishlam Rova Nekeva, when it comes to sodomizing a woman, there's a direct pasuk that says, Diksiv v'haragta es ha'isha es ha'behema. You can see that they're going to kill the woman and the animal. And Rashi points out, so Bishlam Roveya Nekeva, so 1, 2, 3, 5 lines up in the Rashi, in the narrow lines of Rashi on Tedvav Amud Aleph. Ksiv Bei Kaf Gimel. We know that there's got to be 23. Diksiv v'haragta es ha'isha. So you need to kill the woman. V'es behema and then it says esa behema itgish behema. So we connect behema leisha. We have a hekesh v'dina nefashos nafkina and lekaman be'esrim ushlosha. And so as a result, we say that just as the woman needs 23, we'll also need 23 for the animals. But Ella Rova Zachar Minalan, how do I know when it comes to a man that the same thing applies? Well, we have a different pasuk. So while that pasuk was in Vayikra Parakuf pasuk Tet Zion, when it comes to the other, we have a pasuk in Shmot Parakuf Bet pasuk Yudched. Diksiv Kol Shochev Im Behima Mos Yumas. Anybody who lies with an animal is going to be killed, but we already know this law. Im einan inyan l'shochev, and we don't. If we don't need this verse to tell us about somebody, a man who has relations with an animal, teneo inyan l'nishkav. We should learn it in the opposite direction regarding somebody who is attacked by a man who's attacked by the animal. But apke rachmana b'lashon shochev, and why the Torah refers to the man doing the act in order in order to connect the two concepts. Mashochev hu uvemto be'esrim ushlosha, just as if he initiates the situation, both he and the animal will be judged with 23 judges. So too, in a case where the man is the victim, he and the animal are going to be judged by 23 judges. Of course, he will not have to be punished because he was a victim there, but the 23 judges would be needed to kill the animal.
Why? What's the source? You said we already know this. Why do we need the play? What is the other source then?
The other source is, hold on just a second. We have Rashi, take a look in Rashi, De'im Eino Inyan, uh, top of the widest lines in Rashi. De'im Eino Inyan Adam Haba ala Behima. If you don't need it for a person who's having relations with the animal, meaning the person is the actor, Dehakra Chrinuksiv. We have another pasuk. This is Vayikra Perak Kaf pasuk Tedvav. Ish Asher Yitain Shichvato. Where a person says that says a man who lies with an animal shall be put to death. That's what the continuation of that pasuk says. So we already know that a man who lies with an animal is put to death. So therefore, we can, since we already have that from Vayikra, now when it comes to the pasuk, again, when it comes to the pasuk, three psukim, since we have that pasuk in Vayikra, which when it comes to the pasuk in Shmot Parakuf Bet, we can now use that pasuk to teach something different, and specifically we can teach it about the victim as where the animal is the actor rather than the person. Okay.
Well, I'm puzzled. Why is the animal ain't no bardat? So why is the animal killed? Why can't we use the animal for something?
Well, that's exactly what the Torah is telling us. Meaning, without the Torah is telling us, we would never have thought that that would be the case. But the Torah is telling us that if the animal that although the animal may not have any das, we need to kill the animal. It could be because of the concept that we had with respect to the animal of Bilam's donkey. That Bilam's donkey had to die because we didn't want people to say, "Oh, that's the donkey that was talking to Bilam." But the bottom line is that yeah, we don't want people to point out to an animal and say that animal had relations with a person. So in fact, the animals, you're right to raise the question, but that's exactly why the pasuk is needed in the first place. To tell us that in fact the animal needs to be killed. So the Torah then says that an ox is stoned also for killing a person. And again, it too is judged by 23 judges. And in fact, again, it specifically notes that the ox is stoned. So sure, Haniskel be'esri mushlosha. How do I know that an ox is killed with 23? Because and the Mishnah even told us the reason. Shenemar hashor yisakel v'gam ba'alav yumat, that the ox is stoned and even the owner is put to death. Now, kamisas habalim kach misas hashor, and we have Gzereshava basically, or a hekesh between these two concepts. That in fact, that the just as we put would kill the owner, so too the ox is put to death. So Amrle Abayla Rava. So, and of course, we don't actually kill the owner. Instead, the owner has to pay damages. So Abaye asked Rava, I don't understand. Mimai dahai v'gam ba'alav yumat l'kemisas ba'alim kach misas hashor hu da'asa. How do I know that maybe this language of gam ba'alav yumat is telling us that we also need to kill the owner in the same way that we kill the ox? So meaning, how do I know that it's coming to tell us that we use 23 judges? Maybe it's coming to tell us that we actually kill the owner. So Rava explains, no, as we turn to Tet Vavam Abet, Im Kain Lichtav Gam V'Gam Ba'alav V'Lishtok. It should just say V'Gam Ba'alav. It doesn't say V'Gam Ba'alav Yumat. So then I would know that it would also mean to kill the owner. The second, Abaye says, one second, Ikas of Rahmana Hachi Hava Mina Beskila. If we had it just had told us the Gamba Alav that the also owner would die, we would think that it would be by the same death. That just as the ox is killed with skila, so too the person would be killed with skila. As Rashi says, ikas of hachi, kushyahi, this is a question. Kolomer itzruch yumat, we need the word yumat. Ledono b'misa ha'amura b'torah stam, to tell us that we use the plain method of killing that the Torah says. De'enu elachenek, which is strangulation. Delo tema gam ba'alav yisakel, and that we don't say that the owner would also get stoned. So biskila salka daitach. 1 second, you think that we could ever have thought that the owner himself, would be killed with skila? Katal ihu bisayef. If he himself kills someone, we only kill him with the sword. Mamona beskila. If his money kills somebody, we're gonna stone the person. Of course not. So the Gemara asks back on behalf of Abaye, the Dilma Hai de Kasav Rahmana Yumas La Kule Ilave. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe Yumat is used in order to tell us that we're using a lighter form of penalty. La Puke Misayef Lechenek, to go from the murder situation, the death penalty of murder, which is the sword, meaning you cut the person's head off, lechenek, to instead strangulation. So hani kalamanda amar chenek kamur. Now this Rava's position works according to the position that says that chenek, that strangulation, is worse than the sword, because of course Rava would say, you're gonna say that an animal kills somebody, and the owner gets killed with strangulation. That's even worse than what if a person himself did the killing, because he would only get the sword. So how could that be? So of course, then in that ordering, Rava's position makes sense. But Elalamanda Amarchana kill my ikalamabram. But when, according to the ones who says that strangulation is more lenient, and so then this is a good question. Why not say you're right? Stoning is for the very worst offenses. Murder is not quite that bad. So as a result, it's hard to say that, but that's the suggestion. Murder is bad that it only gets the sword. And so as a result, yes, if a person's animal kills, we'll do strangulation on the owner, because that's less of a severe death than the sword. So lo salkataitik. No, you can't possibly think that. The ksiv im kofer yushas alav, because the Torah itself says that that the owner of the ox is going to pay a ransom. This is the pasuk is in Shmo Kaf Aleph pasuk lamed the isakatayta bar katalahu. And if you were to say that the person actually deserves execution, v'haksiv lo tikul kofer lenofesh rotzeach, we don't take a ransom for the life of a murderer. And so as a result, that's exactly right. The point is that we can't say that he needs to be killed. Rather, he pays a ransom. So Adarabba, 1 second, Mishum Higufa, Rabbi says that I don't understand. We could say that that's exactly the point. Katal Ihu, if a person killed, lo tiski leba mamona elabikatala. We can't do anything. There's no way to pay money. He only has to die. Katal Shoro, but if his ox kills, lifrok nafshe b'mamona. We allow him to pay money in order to survive. Ella Amar Chizkiah. So Chizkiah comes and gives us the final answer here. V'chein Tana de Chizkiah, and similarly, it was taught in a brisa in the yeshiva of Chizkiah. Amar Kra Mos Yumas Hamakeh Rotzeachu. When it comes to a murderer, it's the one it's Mos Yumas Hamakeh. The key is that it's only the one who struck the blow is put to death. Al Ritzicha. So ata horgo, only with the murder committed by a person, the iata horgo al ritzichas shoro. But we're not going to kill the person for a murder committed by his ox. And so as a result, that's the final answer. We don't commit somebody for a murder that they don't commit and didn't commit. And so as a result, that's the bottom line. But this does highlight, and in some ways, this really emphasizes, and in fact, especially when it comes to injuring somebody, this is how we end up saying that when you injure somebody, we allow effectively the payment of a ransom. That even though the Torah says ayin takas ayin, shein takas shein, we effectively say in that situation, because it's not ritzicha, that we will allow a ransom. So all of this, even though in the end it doesn't seem like Abaye's point comes through at all. On some level, the thought behind it is very relevant to our practice, in the sense that we say that when somebody injures somebody else, we say that that we don't actually do the same injury to them, but rather we effectively allow them to pay the damages and to effectively pay compensation instead. Okay.
The Gemara here was discussing a comparison between Chenek and Saif, which is more chamor, but the Gemara was discussing skila in terms of the ox and so forth. So where does skila fit on the spectrum of
Skila is the
chamor?
highest. It's definitely skila, and then there's the machlokas between the two opinions about chenek and sayed. So, but skila is certainly the highest level. That's the most severe, and that's why the Gemara accepts Rava's response to Abaye when Rava says, "Well, it can't possibly be skila because everybody agrees that Saif, that the sword, is a lower level than skila." And similarly, everybody agrees that chenek, which is the plain misa, when we say misa without giving anything more, that also is below skila. So everybody agrees that both chenek and Saif are below skila, but the machlokus is about Saif and skila. Okay.
But ultimately, the punishment here for the ox is skila, though, right?
Yes, the ox gets skila, correct. But that's
Also,
because this is the worst thing for the ox. The ox engaged in goring, so we're going to kill kill that ox.
and so the question here is whether the person gets chenek or saif. Is that it?
Well, the question is that Abaye is asking is maybe when it says the gam habal yumat, that maybe it really means a death penalty for the owner.
Right.
But because Rava said no, gam habal yumat teaches us effectively a hekesh, a connection between killing a human and killing the ox. Just as killing a human would require 23 judges, we're going to require the ox to have 23 judges. So that's how Rava explains it. Abaye was like, well, maybe I need the pasuk to actually tell us what it says, and that really we're supposed to kill the person. In the end, we say no, we do not kill the owner. Instead, that the reason that the pasuk references the death of the owner is to tell us that we need 23 judges for the ox.
So what was the discussion between Chenek and Sisayef then? If we're
Well,
not
that was
going to kill the
part of the
person,
discussion. Part of the discussion of how Abaye was arguing, maybe it means the death penalty. He ended up saying, well, maybe it means it doesn't mean skila. Maybe
oh,
yumat
okay.
is used to mean chenek, to mean
Uh-huh.
strangulation.
So
Okay?
if we're going to kill the person, then he would be entitled to a lesser form of death if we're going to kill.
Correct, correct. Because and the whole point is that the strongest form of his of Abaye's question is if you say that chenek is the least severe death, well then maybe what we're saying is that when a person kills somebody, he gets the more severe death of sayif. But if his animal kills somebody, then he gets the least severe death of chenek. But the bottom line is that we, in the end, we reject all of that, and we say
Right.
that no,
Right.
Abaye is wrong. We do not say that the owner gets the
Right.
death
Okay.
penalty. You have to
Okay.
actually commit murder. So
Right. Okay.
Ibailahu, what about the following? We now know that a shore that's going to get killed requires 23 judges. How about the following? Shore Sinai Bakama. What's Shore Sinai? Rashi tells us that it's talking about an ox that would climb up the Har Sinai when the Shechina was on it. And so would that we said that says the Torah says that im behima im ish lo yechya, that whether it's a human or whether an animal or a human, if they touch the mountain or climb the mountain, they will not live. So mi gamar shah midoros olo. Do we derive the number of judges for this temporary law from a law that is more permanent or not? So Tashma, Detani Rami Bar Yechezkel, Im behima im ish lo yechya. Again, the Torah says in that pasuk in Shmos Parak Yud Tet pasuk Yud Gimel.
Yitro.
So it said it connects an animal and a behema. So ma ish bekaf gimel af behema bekaf gimel. Just as a man requires a court of 23, so too an animal would require a court of 23. Okay, then the Mishnah said Ha'ariva Hazev, all these wild animals. So, and then it said Rabbi Eliezer, and it says that you need a quarter of 23. And Rabbi Eliezer said, whoever is the first to kill them acquires them. Now, what exactly was Rabbi Eliezer modifying? Was he modifying a situation where the animal has already killed, or was he modifying the situation even if the animal is just wild? So that's what the Gemara is going to discuss now. Reish Lakish says the following: the Hu Shehemiso. It's only true. His statement of Rebbe Eliezer is only true if the animal actually kills someone. Avalo Hemiso, lo. But if it didn't kill somebody, well, then you can't go ahead and kill the animal and then own the animal. Alma Kasavar, it shows that Reish Lakish believes Yesh lehen tarbus v'yesh lehen balim, that there's the possibility of taming these animals, and therefore there's a possibility of ownership. It's interesting, of course, that Reish Lakish, who himself was a dangerous criminal, would say that actually these animals can be tamed, because on some level one could argue that there was a taming associated with Reish Lakish. So it's a very interesting comparison. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Afal pishalo hemi, so even if the animal never killed anybody. So as a result, even in that situation, if somebody kills the animal, even if it never killed anybody, the person can kill the animal and take ownership of it, of the hide. Alma kasavar ein lehen tarbus ve'ein lehen balim. That shows that these animals can never be tamed and are never and therefore are always ownerless. So Tanan Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kol Hakodim Lahargon Zacha. Whoever comes and kills it first gets something. So Bishlam Rabbi Yochanan. It makes sense according to Rabbi Yochanan. Lamai Zacha. What is he going to get? Zacha laOran. He will get the animal hide because He's killing an animal that has not yet killed a person. And so as a result, when he kills that lion, he gets to keep the lion's hide. El Reish Lakish, but according to Reish Lakish, who says that we're only dealing with a situation where the animal has already killed somebody, Lamai Zacha, what is he going to actually acquire? Kevan Shehamiso, once the animal killed a person, Shavinu Rabbanan Command de Gomer Danaihu. We treat the animal as if it was already sentenced to death. The Isura Hananinu, and therefore it's forbidden to benefit from. So how can you don't get the hide. So what kind of benefit is there? So my Zacha. Zaka l'shamayim. So when we say that it means zaka, it means that you're going to get a heavenly reward. What does a heavenly reward mean? So take a look. Rashi, 6 lines up, end of the line in the narrow lines of Rashi on Tet Vav Amud Bet. Zaka l'shamayim tzedaka asa. He did a righteous deed. So Tanya Kavasi de Reish Lakish. Now, even though we were originally challenged Reish Lakish, turns out that there's actually a brisa that is exactly like him. Echad shor shehem is whether it's an ox that killed, the echad behema, or a domesticated animal, the chaya, or a wild animal, shehem iso, that killed, bekaf gimel. It's always judged with 23 judges. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Again, this is Rabbi Eliezer from our Mishnah. What did Rabbi Eliezer say? Sure, shehemis be'esrim ushlosha. An ox that kills is going to be killed with 23. Ushar behema, every other animal, the chaya, and including the wild animals, shehemiso kol hakodim lahargan zacha behen l'shamayim. Anybody who comes and kills them, they will get a zacha, they will get a merit, a heavenly reward. And so therefore we see that specifically we're dealing with the ox that killed and a heavenly reward. And so that is supporting Reish Lakish's perspective.
Aren't they talking about wild animals?
Yes. Well, the ox it doesn't have to be wild, and same with the behemoth that are referred to there. Behemoth often refers to a domesticated animal, but certainly the chayot are wild animals. But why do you ask?
No,
What's
I'm saying, so is the Torah here giving a heter to kill wild animals? Because maybe they'll do something, a lion or a fox, and maybe they'll do something. They haven't done anything yet, but we're concerned that maybe they will. So the person is almost like giving a heter to deer
Yes,
hunting or to
yes, one can certainly read this Gemara in that way. You're absolutely right. Definitely, one can definitely read this Gemara in that way. I think that you need to have some human goal that you're trying to do. You can't. The poskim are very upset about hunting, even wild animals, thinking that it's a not a Jewish activity. But so you're right to raise that. But if in fact you're trying to civilize a particular tract of land, and you want to try and make sure that the animals don't go on the land, or something along those lines, or you need the hide in order to create clothing for yourself, those would all be permitted reasons, and you would be allowed to kill the animal. Rabbi Akiva said that all these animals need to be judged by a court of 23 judges. But Rabbi Akiva, Hainu Tanakama. What's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and the Tanakama? So as we conclude for today, Ika Benaihu Nachash. The difference between them is a snake. And as Rashi says, the Tanakama, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up in the Rashi on Tetvavam Abet, in the narrow lines, the Tanakama Chashiv Le Bahadi Hanach, that the Tanakama considers a snake part of the overall group, Ubai Kaf Gimel, and therefore he requires 23 judges. Rabbi Akiva, Be'inach Zvirale, Kavase Bar Menachesh, that when it comes to Rabbi Akiva, he thinks that it's true that you need 23 for everything except for a snake. Because Keda Amrina Ba'arba Avos Nazikin, as we saw all the way back in Baba Kama, when we looked at the various aspects of Nazikin, that we saw that and Nachash Muad La'olam, that a Nachash is always essentially a thing that you need to watch and treat it as something that would kill. Divrei Hakol. Everybody agrees to that. And so as a result, because of that unique nature of a snake. Therefore, when it comes to a snake, anybody can go ahead and kill a snake without any kind of due process. But when it comes to every other animal, Rabbi Akiva says that it would require 23 judges.
It's hard
Bottom
to
line is,
imagine walking on in a path and you see a rattlesnake there. You're not killed in it. You have to get 23 judges to decide whether you kill it or not.
well, remember that we're dealing with a rattlesnake that has already killed somebody, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, first of all, I will note that if the animal is threatening you, so then you're always allowed to kill the animal. That's 100%. What is the situation where we're dealing with is a situation where you have the option and you have a decision to make as to whether or not you want to kill the animal. In that situation, if you want to kill the animal and it's killed somebody, you need 23 judges in order to evaluate. Unless again, if it's a snake, and again, that's it differences with Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that no, you don't even need that. So we're now going to turn. We've now completed the
Rabbi
list of.
Akiva, I think. I think it was Rabbi. You said Eliezer. It's Rabbi Akiva, right?
No, Rabbi Akiva says only a snake can be killed without the 23 judges.
Right.
Rabbi Eliezer goes further and says all the wild animals can be killed without 23 judges.
Okay. Well, I don't
Okay,
remember.
so that the you're absolutely right. Thank you for helping me highlight that difference. We have three opinions. Tanakama says that you can only kill these animals that have killed when you judge them with 23 judges. Um, Rabbi Eliezer says that's ridiculous. Wild animals are wild. You if you know that there's an animal that's killed somebody, you need to just go ahead and kill it. You don't wait for 23 judges to try and kill that wild animal. And then Rabbi Akiva says, "Listen, I don't agree with you, Tanakama. I agree that you need generally 23 judges, but when it comes to snakes, that I don't go that far, and that's the one situation where I agree with Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Akiva agrees with Rabbi Eliezer with respect to snakes, and agrees with the Tanakama with respect to everything else. All right, so tomorrow we've now finished the 23 judges. We go to 71 judges, and we go to the situation of judging tribes, which requires 71 judges. So please stay tuned. Look forward to continuing our learning together. Have a wonderful day, a very happy New Year's Day, and enjoy. May the new secular year, be one of tremendous learning and opportunities to finish many Masechtot together. God willing, looking forward to continuing our learning.
Rosh Chodesh too.
And Rosh Chodesh, Chodesh Tov, yes, absolutely. Chanukah Sameach, 100%. All three, we get a nice trifecta. Have a wonderful day.